Good afternoon. Welcome to the Mobile 360 Digital Enterprises IoT section. Our topic today is learn how to deliver secure global IoT services with 4G and 5G networks for enterprises' needs. I'm Eric Yu, Senior Marketing Manager of IoT at the GSMA. I'll be your host today. In the next hour, together with some of the best and most knowledgeable IoT experts, I'll walk you through some key topics and insights into how seamless, secure, and highly scalable IoT solutions and services are being deployed in the IoT and the enterprise sector. First, we have Joe Gilbert, Technical Director and Manufacturing Lead of the GSMA, and Paul Hodges, Senior Vice President of Asia Pacific with Cineverse Technologies. They're going to discuss the role of private, public, and hybrid networks in meeting the enterprise IoT requirements. Over to you, Joe.
Hi, my name's Jo Gilbert and I'm a Technical Director and a Manufacturing Lead at GSMA. And I'm delighted to be speaking today with Paul Hodges, Senior Vice President, Asia Pacific at Cineverse Technologies. And today we're talking about private, public and hybrid networks and the role that they can play in meeting the enterprise IoT requirements. So Paul, welcome. It's great to be speaking with you today. Let's start off with a level learned question so everybody has the same understanding of terms. Can you give us a quick overview of what private, public and hybrid networks are in the context of the mobile network operator?
Thank you, Joe. Firstly, my thanks for inviting me to the IoT session today. We always value the opportunity for discussions with mobile operators around the world. Cineverse has been a pivotal player in the mobile industry for over 30 years now, and we're proud to play a key role in helping mobile operators evolve their networks and services through every transformation. To your question, public, private, hybrid networks. So a public network can be the internet or indeed a cellular network using licensed spectrum to provide connectivity for customers. A private network is a network that is isolated and independent from public use, where the owner has full control over the network and can be used for a defined business purpose. Private networks can be either standalone, an island if you like, or hybrid networks. In a hybrid network, the owner has the controlled access benefits of a private network, but also the ability to roam to and from public networks. And we're seeing more and more cases of hybrid network deployments globally for a variety of use cases. Private networks are quickly becoming a keen area of focus for mobile operators and the customers. At Cineverse, we offer both foundational capabilities and a variety of technology solutions to operators in terms of network, signaling, policy, charging, messaging, and analytics. Cineverse, if you like, is a private wireless enabler, providing a number of key secure solutions to enable private wireless networks. And we can talk later about some of the dedicated products and solutions that we offer.
Thanks, Paul. So a private network is a fully isolated network, and the hybrid network supports both public and private access to suit the requirements of the enterprise. Great. So thinking about enterprise requirements for IoT, we think about areas like 5G connectivity, the cloud, etc. And I was interested to see in a GSMA intelligence report last month that of those enterprises interviewed, more than 50% told us that security was a top priority in choosing an IoT solution. And our operators are also reporting a strong growth in demand for security. And they see security as being the top operational priority in helping enterprises to achieve long-term revenue goals. So, does that echo what's your experience with Cineverse customers?
Yes, so Cineverse has been working with mobile operators and enterprise customers on many IoT use cases for private wireless. And yes, we found similar feedback that security considerations are really fundamental when deploying solutions. One of the key differentiators for private wireless solutions over traditional Wi-Fi deployments is actually security. Private wireless also provides for enhanced coverage, better reliability, and increased capacity. So at Syniverse, we're seeing more and more customers in a diverse range of industries looking for private wireless solutions, whereby the data needs to be kept securely within a controlled environment. And we're seeing deployments across transportation and shipping, airports, seaports, entertainment venues, sports stadiums, arenas, concert halls, buildings, hotels, hospitals, shopping malls, college campuses. Then you also get the remote sites, such as mining operations, construction sites, industrial factories, warehouses, power plants. The list's endless. And where Syniverse brings value to all these use cases fundamentally is in secure access and connectivity, right from device to application, through a range of dedicated products and services. We're able to host core networks in the cloud and offer connectivity and management solutions through our global IPX network, mobile policy control center, mobile profile management capabilities, and we also have global SIM offerings from a host of mobile operators globally, all working seamlessly to help operators provide their customers with leading enterprise IoT connectivity solutions, and particularly those requiring high bandwidth, low latency environment.
Great, thanks for that. And you mentioned actually their deployment across a range of sectors, which is great to see. And as we're here today speaking at the Mobile 360 Asia Pacific event, I was interested to learn that operators in this region see a strong revenue opportunity in the transportation and warehousing sector. And I think this is an interesting sector in its challenges because it requires both secure and scalable coverage indoors when we're looking for items within a warehouse, and then outdoors beyond the country as we're looking at logistics and tracking transport, etc. So how can the operator deliver a solution in this situation?
Yeah, so, well, I think this question is probably better answered by the operator panelists in the next session. But yes, transport and warehousing are huge in the region, and both present a massive opportunity for mobile operators. Traditionally, logistics and stock tracking may have been done by RFID and warehouse premises via Wi-Fi coverage, but this comes with intrinsic security concerns, and the evolution of this is to private 4G or 5G with a mobile core. So a private network with dedicated cellular coverage can support advanced technologies in strategic indoor and outdoor operations that previous Wi-Fi deployments couldn't support. And these networks, as we discussed, can be deployed in standalone or hybrid mode and incorporate additional technologies such as multi-access edge computing to deliver services that demand low latency, securely powered by the cloud, and can even be augmented with artificial intelligence type solutions. And of course, regional or even international deployments can be securely connected via use of Syniverse's secure global access and dedicated global SIM capabilities. I think for more insights from mobile operators, maybe it's a good time to move to the panel session and maybe hear from some of the leading mobile operators in the region.
I think that does lead us nicely into the upcoming panel session. So thanks for that, Paul. But before we go, before we close, Paul, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you today, and thank you for joining me. And to share the Syniverse view on how private, public and hybrid networks can help meet the enterprise IoT requirements. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Joe. It's a pleasure as always.
Thank Joe and Paul for the insightful sharing. Secure access to cloud connectivity through cellular networks, managed services, and global SIMs are crucial to enterprises in devices, especially requiring high bandwidth, low latency environment. Next, we'll welcome a great panel of speakers to help us understand how mobile network operators are working with enterprises to encounter the challenges from capacity, scalability, costs, and roaming. I'll pass the time to David Turkington, Head of Technology in Asia Pacific at the GSMA, and introduce the panelists. David, over to you.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Eric. I have the panel with me here. Let me introduce them in no particular order. Charles Riddler from Telstra, Christopher Soon from Cellcom Axiata, Johnson Chang from Nightsec Enterprises, Rudan Khan from DTAC, Kai Lee from Unicom, and Kathiravan Kandasan from Cineverse, who you just heard from his colleague, Paul Hodges. So I think maybe we ask KK, if I may,
Sure.
refer to that. One of the first questions we have here is, as IoT addresses many new use cases and applications, what are the challenges that you see?
Sure. Thank you, David. I think one of the key learnings that Cineverse has observed in trying to enable private wireless, because that's how Cineverse sees ourselves, that we are a private wireless enabler, is a true understanding of the use case. And just because it's IoT, I think we are all aware that IoT can be anything from a light bulb to a turbine generator, right? So a true understanding of what the use case is, simple things like, what is a bandwidth requirement? Does it require, high bandwidth, low latency? Are there security concerns? And lately, if it requires mobility, right? Because IoT use cases today, as we just heard, logistics, transportation are huge, and it's just exploding, right? So a good understanding of the use case, and then finding out, the right solution stack to apply to this use case. I think that remains a crucial challenge and learning for many people, David.
Certainly, I'm scribbling down your answers there, because I think everybody might have something to say about that. So maybe if I go on to Charles, about IoT use cases, what are the challenges? What have you seen?
Thanks, David, and it's great to be here. Look, I think some of the challenges that you face are bringing the customer along on the journey, because we sometimes get caught up in the technology of IoT. And the technology is super exciting, and there's lots of engineers on this call, I'm sure. And when you're dealing with a customer though, and trying to help them solve a problem, quite often they don't understand the technology, or it's not relevant to the problem they're trying to solve. And so I think we as cellular providers and technology providers get sort of trip over ourselves in a way, when if we could change the nature of the conversation with the customers to what problem are you trying to solve, we can solve that for you, and then we can bring and make the technology work for you. And because I know we've done it at Telstra, we were sort of guilty of this as well. We were the first ones to build narrowband and Cat M1 network in 2017, I think it was. And we went, everyone, look, we've got a Cat M1 network, a narrowband network. How excellent is this? And there were no devices to put on the network. And so we sort of, the cart before the horse. It was fantastic to have that network available. And it's not really until the customers mature and create those use cases, and we help them create those use cases, that that we get to where we are today, which is having a successful plethora of use cases with our customers. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, indeed. Christopher, so same question. What IoT use cases do you see, and the challenges ahead? Famous last words, you're on mute.
Sorry about that, first mistake. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question when we are asked that. And I agree with what Charles has earlier mentioned as well. I think the important things with technology, let's not get too caught up with the technology. I think the important thing to the customer, to the end clients, actually the solution that we can work together with them. And so here over at Cellcom as well, we work very closely with our customers. We sit down together with them, understand their pain points, and then map up a journey with them. I think this is a journey that we take with our customers. It's not a one-time solution, and then we look into the end-to-end, right? The connectivity, the solutions, and how we can put that together. And I think very important as well for them is that the reporting and the analytics that we can get for the customers, because at the end of the day, they want to see as well how that helps them, especially in terms of cost, in terms of deployment. So I think by putting that end to end for our customers, it gives them the whole complete journey as well as the value that they can see at the end of the whole journey. So and I think you mentioned about the use cases. So I give you an example. I think over here as well, logistics is a very big thing right now, and we're working with a lot of customers to to get into the analytics for their driver behavior. That helps them to reduce the cost of operation. Helps them as well to leverage on their current vehicle, so that the lifespan of the vehicle can go longer because of the proper maintenance they can do at the right interval and at the best cost.
Thank you. For Dr. Rudan, what do you see as as the IoT challenges coming across for your team?
Yeah, I think as IoT is maturing with time, the requirements from the customers are evolving as well. We have two tracks. One is the core IoT capabilities as far as connectivity is concerned, and customers are asking for more. They would like to use more APIs. They would like to use more flexible charging, roaming, and etc. As far as use cases are concerned, they are also kind of moving away from basic monitoring to more data-driven, insight-driven information. Now, the challenge that at least I see in DTAC and within Telenor is that we have created a lot of silos in IoT. For example, our telematics application, our smart home applications, our industrial IoT application are kind of vertical. So there are technology silos there. And when the customers are asking for APIs, they're asking for flexible packaging, they're asking for more open modular architecture from our side. We are stuck with that legacy implementation of vertical and silo-based IoT stack. So I think the challenge is to how we transform that siloed approach into a more open, horizontal, modular, API-driven. And of course, how use that transformation to be more data-driven, because the industry is moving fast. 5G has generated a lot of awareness, and now we are talking about edge and AI. But if we are to use edge and AI, we need a kind of open IoT stack. So I think that's a technological challenge that I'm sure is common for most of the operators that are in this space.
Yes, indeed. My own experience was one day you'd be talking to a food manufacturing company, and then the next you're trying to measure the amount of diesel in a tank, and it takes there's a certain amount of domain expertise. I've spoken to Chris about this, and I think we'll come back to that in a short moment. But maybe we move on to the next question. How is 5G? How does it make us change our mind about IoT? Because we heard from Charles about how they built the NB-IoT network, and it's got its limitations, but 5G sort of blows those away. Where are the new opportunities? Maybe if I go to Kylie from Unicom, maybe if you can fill us in what you see as the new opportunities for 5G and IoT.
Yeah. Actually, 5G provides the MMTC and the URLC the feature for especially for the IoT, and we do see lots of requirement from the customer. They wanna using 5G, like the timing synchronization. Yeah, we have a power customer that they have a lot of very long distance power lines, so that they need to synchronize the time between the devices. So they need a very accurate timing, and but the GPS cannot give it because the device may be under the ground in the building, so the device, the GPS cannot receive the signal. So they need 5G to give them very accurate timing. But the 4G also can provide it, but the 4G cannot provide the very accurate timing. So this is one scenario. And another scenario, we also do some POC with our customer, like TSN, time sensitive network by 5G. So this kind of scenario we are doing with the customer in industrial IoT. So they also need the how to say different device need to cooperate each other. So they need the time sensitive network. But before that, they just can use a fiber to the TSN over fiber. But the how to say very long-distance cooperation needs the 5G. And I can see lots of those kind of industrial IoT scenario happened in China, and we also another use case is about the security, about the data transformation. They want to use the 5G to build up a private 5G network, so we can use the capability. And another thing is 5G plus the MEC, mobile edge computing. So 5G provide lots of new feature than the 4G. So we will use those kind of UIRC and MMTC to, especially to the industrial customer.
Right. I think we'll come back to the private networks and private spectrum and all that stuff. That's, you opened up a very interesting topic there. But sticking with the challenge, changing from IoT to 5G IoT. Charles, what do you see are the new opportunities? The high bandwidth of 5G certainly must do something more than NB-IoT. So.
Yeah, well, look, I think I didn't say NB-IoT firstly was limited, because NB-IoT, while it is focused on narrow band, the benefits are that a huge extended range. So it's there's a lot, and now it's part of the 5G standard. So we actually think of it as a 5G product. And why that's important is that gives us longevity, so that customers can ultimately know that the network will be around for long use cases like digital water metering. But to your question.
Yeah, not everything needs 10 megabits.
Exactly, and you get that. There's a lot of IoT use cases where you only want a couple of kilobits. So what is 5G though at the big data end? So look, smart video is one of the real interesting use cases. All of the things you can do with cameras now, and that obviously cameras use a lot of bandwidth. And so the more you can put cameras, distributed cameras without the fiber backhaul, and do that over the cellular network. And what's interesting with smart video though is it can chew through a lot of data, but we're also we've got now cameras that do edge processing, so that it actually can just upload the metadata, and so that's actually quite small bits of data. So cameras is a really interesting new use case that is a great one for 5G, but also brings the power of edge compute to reduce the data backhaul that is required. So yeah, I think where as more and more data is consumed, and there's more use cases being created every day with bigger amounts of data. So I think it's going to be one of these exponential growth opportunities. But where we're focusing quite a bit of time is in smart video at the moment.
Right. I'm certainly, I think I want to try and come back to that if we have time. So maybe over to you, Chris. Where do you see the new opportunities for, Cellcom?
Sorry again. Yeah, I think with COVID as well, hitting this region, I think smart AR VR is something that we are looking into as well, because we know the factories with training and with inspection. AR VR brings a new dimension into how people can work in this new environment where you want to have social distancing and so on. I think AR VR as well provides those data that can pull out automatically from the cloud. And the technicians they could use it to inspect the machineries and get advanced. I've seen it, and it's quite interesting because the AR glasses will actually let you know from the data that which are the component that are most likely to fail, and therefore reduce time for the technician to actually zoom in into the problem, and it can actually solve the problem much earlier and faster. And that reduces downtime in the long run. So I think we were very excited about those kind of application, and I think when we showed this to our client over here, they are quite excited as well. And I think the next step obviously is to have proof of concept to get the journey going with our customers.
Yeah, this is again something I've seen in the past is, predictive maintenance is really much more important than telling you the fault has happened. For example, if a refrigerator breaks down, once the temperature goes high, then it's sort of already too late and all the food is ruined. So you really want to know as soon as the power goes off or the fridge stops consuming power. And so this is where I think the predictive maintenance, whether it be with a camera or some other big data monitoring. So maybe Dr. Rudun, over to you. So what's DTAC doing in the 5G IoT?
Well, what we are doing in the 5G space is going more vertical, working with the verticals like manufacturing, like logistics, transport, and utilities, and of course, the high bandwidth part of IoT, which comes from 5G, are two main features. One is of course the bandwidth, which is required for a lot of monitoring, like video analytics, especially in the use cases like manufacturing facility and ports and airports and seaports, where video analytics play a key role, especially automated guided vehicle, real-time tracking of employees, safety, security, and etc. Also, there are evolving use cases from the retail side on video analytics to get more from customer movement, heat mapping, and etc. And then, of course, on the latency side, we see a lot of industrial automation use cases coming up, especially in Thailand. The auto industry is a very highly competitive industry, and they're kind of going for more automation, both within the factory and within the car. And then the private network edge is coming into play. And the other side is that going forward, the industrial IoT use cases are evolving. They are not only monitoring these days. They also want to visualize. They want to kind of use a little bit of digital twin, a little bit of visualization for the management, so that they can see the how the whole system is working, what are the improvement scope. And the next phase will be more on robotics, especially on use cases like vehicles. So I think moving forward, IoT slowly is evolving into two different space. One is low bandwidth, high reliability technologies like CAT-M and NB-IoT, and this is a bit evolution of legacy 2G, 3G IoT, but that's now part of 5G, obviously. But then high bandwidth like analytics, digital twin, automation, these will define the core 5G use cases, especially on the EMBB and URLLC use cases. So exciting time as far as 5G IoT is concerned.
Yeah, certainly. Actually, I have a session next week on Wednesday about sort of bridging this the gap between the knowledge gap between what operators do and what the verticals do, how to address that. So I invite you to attend that. So shameless plug there for my session later. But going on, how to meet the scalability challenge. Charles, this is something you hinted at earlier. How do you do it? What needs to change to make sure that that's going to be addressed properly?
Yeah, look, scalability is a problem for everyone in this sector, and I think if you choose the right technology, it's a fairly simple problem to solve. We've got a customer, a digital water metering customer, and they were looking to solve the simple problem of how do I get more information about my water leaks and detect leaks in the network. Mm-hmm. And when you've got something like a water customer that has millions of endpoints or water meters at homes and in the water network, how do you monitor something like that at such scale? And that's where cellular IoT really comes into play. So we did a deal with a water authority called Yarra Valley Water in Australia. And they've got 1 million endpoints. And so connecting 1 million endpoints in one sort of platform and network is a challenge. But with cellular IoT, and we're using our narrowband IoT network, that gives you the scalability, the security, and the knowledge that it's a carrier grade solution. And so I think that's where IoT can play in many different parts. If you're using a small little smart city application with just 10 devices, maybe a non-cellular solution might be the way to go. When you get to mass scale, though, that's where you want the certainty and the reliability of a cellular network. And so I think that, directly to answer your question, the mobile carriers and cellular IoT has been around for a long while and obviously has built its credentials on its scalability. And so being able to relay that into the new ecosystem of all of these data-heavy use cases and data insight use cases, because that's ultimately what IoT is about increasing the data insights. So doing that at scale is much easier with a proven technology. So I hope that makes sense.
No, it's me, not on mute. So maybe Dr. Radan, back to you for the same question, and then we'll talk about private networks after. So scalability, what's the challenges that you've met in scalability?
No, I think scalability is not just on the network domain, is cross-layer. A scalable network doesn't give you the scalability in terms of the whole stack. For example, I see a lot of use cases from customers are built on typical software development methodology, front end, back end. They don't use IoT platform or some sort of adaptation that that does the proper application enablement and creates an API-driven environment. I think I've seen many customers over the last 5-6 years are struggling to scale because their application architecture is not scalable because they are not using the platform side of it. So I think if we want to deliver a solution to an IoT customer, I think we shouldn't just look into the network part. Of course, network is a key component, but also we need to ensure device and application scalability. And there are a lot of IoT platforms. There are a lot of support coming up from hyperscaler and also traditional IoT platform providers. So I think a little bit of advocacy, especially in the building foundation period of a IoT use case or application, would help a lot for a customer who wants to scale fast. So that's the point that I'd like to emphasize in terms of scalability.
That's a very good point. In the past, I worked with some guy who was trying to develop phone apps, and he said the developers all come from the desktop background, and so they paid no attention to the power consumption or the data consumption of their apps, and so we had to reteach everyone how to be frugal on power and time your data, and not just assume you have a 10 megabit link all of the time. And the same goes for IoT, and certainly if you want to make it scalable. So maybe this is a good time to go on to, which is sort of the last question, but I'm taking them out of order if you haven't noticed, about devices and applications. Specific IoT, how to scale these opportunities, and this is to do with devices. And perhaps if I go to you, Johnson, first, how do you scale the devices, and how do you meet this problem of writing the software to be frugal with energy and consumption when it's running on batteries for a long time?
Right. Thank you, David. I think this is a very good question, and most of the panelists is from the operator base, but we as a niche enterprise, we provide the turnkey solutions that covers the hardware. So I'd like to, as my position, I'd like to focus a bit about the devices. So I think that there are three critical paths to the successful IoT devices. Number one, that is the antenna. The most IoT devices, they're using the wireless transmission. So, in most technology from mobiles, such as NB-IoT, Cat-M1, they are adaptive power output. That means if you have a better antenna, that can save your battery because you can transmit with a lower power output. So that's number one. Then the number two is about the signal design, signal model design. We won't expect the wireless transmission would be zero data loss, but that is not justifiable to make the mobile network less reliable. So better qualified signal model design is very crucial in this point. So whenever we did not receive the acknowledgement from the server, then we will retry and we will retry. So this kind of signal model is something that we are looking for, and the customer often ask. So for example, we operating 30,000 parking sensors around Taiwan Island, and we also operate the thousands of manhole detectors. Those kind of devices, dispersed, installed, all over. So that's the reason we need to design a suitable signal model for each devices. And the third would be the every retried counts. So whenever we see a recount, that means we need to improve the signal. Otherwise, either the accuracy will reduce or the battery will drain quickly. So in summary, the antenna design, signal model design, and the recounts, those kind of indicators, and that is how we evaluate very good performance of IoT turnkey under a total cost of ownership. David.
Thanks very much. Johnson, that's coming from that background myself of knowing how to run things on batteries, I fully understand your challenges. Exactly, if you have to send two sends every time, then you basically halved your battery life from whatever it might be 5 years to 2 years. And so it's critical that you do that. So maybe Chris, you mentioned also that you had an interest in the end user devices and how do you make them scalable and not run out of battery.
Yeah, I think for devices, it's really important to get the right technology. So when you talk about low powered devices like NB-IoT, that will work. And it also depends whether the solution is for indoor or outdoor, right? I think so there's a few things to consider: the technology, the use cases as well. But I think for us as well, when we look at the whole ecosystem, I think it's very important to have the right partner as well in the whole ecosystem. Getting the right device partner, getting the right cloud technology, for example, and getting the right platform for IoT as well. The total ecosystem will help you, to get the solution right. And so for us as well, we do work with and to make sure that they work under the condition that they are supposed to. And I think having that knowledge and having that partners that we have, we could easily scale it as well as to get the right solution towards our customers. David.
Okay, Thanks. You touched on one point there, about the devices being mobile, and of course, manhole covers you hope are not mobile because that means someone's stolen one. But in other cases, tracking vehicles and so on, this mobility is a key issue, along with possibly roaming, and then you have permanent roaming. So maybe if I go over to KK to ask, how do you see this roaming problem or challenge being met with IoT and 5G IoT?
Yep. I think we are just seeing such exponential growth in use cases that really relies on mobility, right? Because when IoT deployments initially came about, a lot of it was really, very static. They were within a campus, industrial deployments were within factories. But now that, the ability to leverage a cellular connectivity, right, allows for devices, and I think Charles was alluding to this earlier. It just gives them, a much larger scale of coverage, right, and that works really, really well when you are, within a geographic location and where you may have a MNO that provides domestic coverage. But now IoT has, literally has the ability to cross borders, right? So when you cross border and you are using a cellular connectivity as your connectivity option, now there is a requirement for that device to be able to be supported by multiple public cellular networks, right? And that may or may not be limited to a single mobile network operator. So that's where the roaming requirement comes from. So the ability for a device that is, for argument's sake, let's say it's attached to the home network, it crosses the border when it's on transit, right? Crosses on to a different country, latches on to a different network, what we call a visited network, right? So that is a roaming scenario. But the issue here is, especially in IoT, when we are talking about logistics, containers is a great example, right? Containers may actually be in a location for a very long time, right? So when a container leaves its origin country and goes to a different country and latches on to a different network, a visited network, then there is a requirement for that visited network to be able to support that container for longer than 45 days, 60 days, 90 days, right? So that is where permanent roaming comes in. And I think there's a lot of bilateral arrangements that's being made by mobile operators, because you kind of like have to treat it like how we treat consumers. You just can't hold people down, right? They will travel, they will move, right? And so IoT use cases are also similar to that. So that's where there is a real need to support permanent roaming. There are a few countries, I think they do have very stringent laws, and this is mainly related to localizing the data. They don't want data to leave their borders, as an example, right? So that's one of the key things that we see, and I think this is where a lot of private network enablers come into play, because private network enablers can actually provide solutions that may be able to provide different type of coverage options for the enterprise customer, right? As opposed to being tied to just a single SIM. Today, we actually have multi-IMSI OTA, which means you can tie, multiple profiles. You have eSIMs that could be updated over the air, right? So there are challenges, but then there are solutions as well, David.
Yes, it's interesting you mentioned containers. I was just watching a video earlier, and it said how the biggest ships can have 14 or 18,000 containers on. The mind boggles. They're just absolutely giant things. And if your container's in the bottom of the pile, then the radio coverage isn't going to be very good, I should imagine. Maybe Chris, you maybe showed interest in this question before, so maybe I hand it over to you about that one.
So sorry, David, can you repeat the question again? I just want to get the gist of it. Yeah.
So it was about the use cases of mobility and so on, because we talked about it earlier.
Okay.
How your solution.
Yep, sure. So I think we're quite fortunate here in Celcom Axiata, because when it comes to roaming, we have footprints across Asia with my parent company, which is Axiata, and we have a team as well to support us on that. So whenever such a solution comes by that we require such expertise, I could get the team from Axiata to work down together with me and to just suggest the kind of a roaming agreement or the type of SIM that we can use that would provide that kind of coverage across globally when we provide such IoT solutions.
Yeah, that's one thing also about using eSIMs, because if you've got 10,000 parking sensors to send out, you don't really want to open each one up and have to put a SIM in it. eSIM would make it somewhat easier. Maybe Johnson, if you can tell us, how do you manage that, the eSIM sort of management of lots and lots of devices?
Thank you, David. So again, I'd like to focus on the device part. Basically, you talked about the eSIM, right? There are actually another option, which is industrial plastic SIM. That is also another solution. Given that, as you mentioned about the parking sensor, that is, the operating under maybe the maximum would be the 70 Celsius degree on the ground in the summertime, in the noon. So that's the reason we have many options to come in, such as the eSIM and the industrial plastic SIM that provides higher sustainability over the time, since we operate in the parking sensor over 3 years, 4 years, many years. So that is something that we will consider, and that also affect the reliability as well. So, but again, the shortage of eSIM is about, we need to put the eSIM into our SMT factory. Whenever we making, because we also manufacture the products itself. So whenever we manufacture the NB-IoT kind of product, then we need to, if we're using eSIM, then we need to take the eSIM into our factory to do the SMT mounting. So that's something that reduces the flexibility. Otherwise, if you can't switch over to different operator, then we need to have a stock on that kind of solutions. David?
That's a very good point. The eSIM maybe isn't the answer to all problems. So I guess the audience needs to bear that in mind whenever they go out and buy these things. Maybe going back to the private networks as a sort of an operator solution. Maybe if I bring Kai Li back in, how do you find the market for private networks in China Unicom? Are they a challenge, or do you work with them or essentially run them for the for the vertical industries? Sorry, you're on mute still.
Yeah, sorry. We still need to think about from the operator perspective. We have lots of private network requirement from the industry customer, such as the our in mining industry. They need the private wireless network to command to the dispatch their devices, their vehicles. So from the operator perspective, we provide the 5G private network to our customer. And another use case is in the in some factory, they need to control the facility. So the latency is a crucial requirement, but latency cannot be resolved from internet. So we provide the 5G private network. And how to make sure the security is another requirement from the private network. Another thing is a very long distance, because our customer is moving increase the business very fast. So they have a lot of campaign or lots of factory need to cooperate each other. So they need a very long distance cooperate through a 5G private network. And we also see some control network in between different cities. So we provide a virtual spectrum or a virtual 5G for them. So yeah, this is a lot of we already, how to say, build up several hundred of those kind of use cases to our customers. So I think it's very large business.
That's an interesting point. You say that the customers are scattered, or rather the suppliers are scattered, and perhaps they need to join up private networks, and that puts China Unicom in a very strong position to do that. So maybe if I move on to KK, what's Cineverse doing for the private networks? Because I know you're doing lots for the public networks and SIM cards and so on. So what about private networks?
Yeah, I think we see ourselves really as a private network enabler. Someone just painted the picture of the entire ecosystem, starting with devices, a carrier network, the applications that that the devices are trying to access to. Sometimes they are provided by a cloud services provider, right? How we see ourselves is really the ability to enable private wireless use cases, and we want to be able to support regardless of who the radio vendor is, regardless of the spectrum, right? We want to be able to provide our IoT cellular SIM solution, so that the devices can actually be controlled. It could be policed, it could be metered, we could do steering on them, right? We want to be able to bring the data back into Cineverse. We leverage on our global IPX network. We have a global private network as well, and one of our esteemed colleagues was just mentioning that there is a need to actually take the data from this IoT deployment and private wireless deployment into the applications, perhaps even without touching the public internet. So we have a slew of products. I'm not going to talk about products, but instead what we do is that we listen to the customers, and we are able to tailor very specific product sets and enable private wireless use cases. And that could be private wireless island or hybrid, especially when they require mobility, when the consumer or the devices want to be able to move out of a private network, trying to solve the problem of how do you get the device to latch onto a macro network when the device moves out of the private network coverage, right? Sometimes I think just letting the radio behavior and the device to decide may not be good enough, especially if the device is right at the border between the public and the private network, or if there's an overlap coverage of the macro network over the private wireless network. Then how do you tell the device which network you should be attaching to, right? So Cineverse actually has some secret sauce and solution sets that can enable the registration of the device onto a private network, as opposed to trying to figure out which network it should attach to, right? As well as the ability to as I mentioned, we have very strong policy products, and API is a big thing. Dr. Redwan mentioned that many times, and I was just smiling to myself because that is so true. We have customers who actually want to have that carrier type of functionality at their fingertips. And by that, what I mean is that they want to be able to do device provisioning. They want to be able to see, where are the devices, which device is up. They want to be able to turn it on, suspend them, right? They want to be able to apply data pack themselves. They want to look at the data that is being generated by that connectivity to see, to get some sort of insights on the behavior of those devices. And more importantly, they are always trying to figure out, okay, I have all of this information now, how can I monetize it, right? And then and security is a totally different topic that we can talk for hours. They want to know, like, okay, I have all of these devices. Can I get private IP UE addresses? Can I get private APN? And can I, with 5G, can I get, a network slice type of behavior? Can I use hubs where, the signaling is centralized, but then the data could be, localized, right? Some sort of mobile edge compute, local breakout type of capabilities. So, they are educated and they're educating themselves really well. And I think they are like really pushing the envelope. Okay, what else can we do here? So it's really exciting times, David.
Yes, indeed. It sounds like you're going to have to talk to Johnson to figure out the firmware to sort these complexities out. So maybe I pass over to Ridan. What do you see about private networks? And if we have time, maybe quickly Charles after. I think we're almost up. Over to you, Ridan.
No, fully agree with KK. I mean, so telcos are new in B2B space because, these industries, they have a up and running network. They're doing a lot of automation within their niche areas, which telcos, we are not typically aware of. So when these two worlds collide, when we are talking to them, in many cases, we see that, they are much evolved than us. And they are actually forcing us to kind of think openly, be more open up. And also it's a challenge for telco because, the connectivity is commoditized heavily. And all these new features, APN, VPN provisioning, user plane separation, and etc., comes with a lot of investment. So, of course, the challenge is how we can get a greater share of the pie by diversifying into value-added services, application use cases, and etc. Evolving scenario, but we have, as a telco, we have a lot to catch up.
Yes, indeed. I think you've said it really well. It's colliding galaxies of IT, telco, and now vertical industries that we had no idea about. So maybe a last word over to you, Charles. So,
thanks, David. Look, I think with private networks, I mentioned earlier we shouldn't be too focused on the technology, but with some of the technology with private 5G networks is really exciting and helping to solve some of the customer problems. So what we're starting to deploy is 5G slicing to give you an effective private network on a public network. And so it gives the benefit, if the customer wants a private network with all of the security that goes with that, having that private slice gives you that private network at a much lower cost because you can. So it's solving the customer problem in a more effective way. And so that's pretty exciting, and we're starting to roll that out, and customers are really interested in it. So you get an extension of the public network. They can get a private core if they like. So they've got their own effective walled-in secure space, but they're using a shared RAN, which gives them that cost-effective ability to scale a private network at a lower cost. So so that's a really new one. Customers in all sorts of sectors like mining, manufacturing are starting to be interested in this as the costs come down and the technology matures. So thanks, David.
Yes, indeed. You made a good point about network slicing, being able to sort of solve a lot of these private network demands on the public network. And I think that's a really good point. And like KK said, this is one of the topics we could talk for hours on. But I think we're up for time. So thank you, the panelists, for your participation. And I look forward to meeting you face-to-face next time, and hopefully sooner rather than later. And now I'll hand over to Eric. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David, and an expert panel for the great discussion. I hope you now understand more about how the ecosystem in multiple APAC countries are working closely together to accelerate the IoT development and digital transformation. That's all from our section today. If you'd like to understand more about IoT, please visit gsma.com/IoT. You may visit the agenda for other Mobile 360 sections, and we'll see you very, very soon. Bye for now.
Tahun ini patutnya gembira. Tahun ini patutnya ceria. Tapi tahun ini kita diduga Tapi kita ini Malaysia. Segalanya sudah kita harungi. Segalanya sudah kita tangani. Malaysia bersama, ini pasti. Melayu, Cina, India, Kadasan, Iban dan semuanya. Kita gagah, kita berdiri bersama. Kita pantang diduga. Ayo, kita kurangkan keraguan. Kita kurangkan kerisauan. Kerana kita ada insan-insan bertungkus lumus di barisan hadapan. Sayang kita kepada negara. Bersama kita bantu dengan apa cara. Kerana sayanglah, kita akan berusaha. Kita bantu sehabis mampu. Kerana kau dan aku ada untuk kau dan aku. Mungkin kita tak sempurna, tapi yang penting kita sedang gigih mencuba. Kerana kita sayang Malaysia. Akhirnya pasti, penat lelah ini akan membawa hasil esok hari. Penyatuan kita semua, sayang kita pada Malaysia. Kita akan menangi perang wabak ini.
We are not perfect, but we are doing the best we can to pull through this crisis together as one nation. And God willing, we'll come out stronger when this crisis ends and the dust settles, inshallah.
इस दौर से तेरी दौड़ है, सुन तेरे अंदर शोर है। इस दौर से तेरी दौड़ है, सुन तेरे अंदर शोर है। हालात की तोड़ की जंजीरें खुद लिख ले अपनी तकदीरें। लगा दे जान, इरादे कर, फिर देखना अपना असर। झंडे 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 इस दौर से तेरी दौड़ है, सुन तेरे अंदर जोर है। हालात की तोड़ की जंजीरें खुद निकले अपनी तकदीरें। लगा दे जान, इरादे कर, फिर देखना अपना असर। झंडे 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 लगाते जा, इरादे कर, फिर देखना अपना असर। झंडे झंडे
सुपर नहीं तो 4G नहीं, Jazz Super 4G।
Aku Irma. Desa Muara Padang adalah tempat tinggal aku sejak lahir.
Udah siap belum, Bu?
Sudah, Mbak.
Sebagai bini seorang nelayan, aku bantu laki aku jual ke Iwa. Perjalanan yang harus kami tempuh demi jual ke hasil tangkapan tidaklah mudah. Selain akses yang sulit, aku juga harus bersaing untuk jual ke Iwa sampai habis. Lapak tetangga yang terjingok selalu rami, kadang bikin aku sedih.
Bu Dias, iya, kan pasaran lagi sepi. Kok bisa sih lapak ibu rame terus pembelinya? Oh ini Bu, cukup kita foto ikan-ikannya Be. Pun sudah bisa beli lewat handphone.
Tapi aku bersyukur karena warga di sini selalu saling bantu. Hingga akhirnya kami bertemu dengan Pak Irwan yang mandu kami dalam guno ke internet.
Tim Palembang besok kita cek tower di Muara Padang ya.
Aku semakin ngerasa keperubahan setelah Pak Irwan dan tim tingkat ke kualitas jaringan yang ada di sini. Mak ini hari, jarak bukan lagi masalah. Aku pacak terhubung dengan pembeli kapan dan di mana baik. Mau kasih, sudah membangkitkan semangat kami dengan jaringan internet yang berkualitas.
लाइफलाई अनपज गरी जिउ जिन्दगी नयाँ अन्दाजमा प्रस्तुत छ नारीहरूका लागि गो सेम। 1 वर्षसम्म हरेक रिचार्जमा बोनस, स्पेशल सापटी, सुरक्षा र स्वास्थ्यको सेवा साथै थुप्रै आकर्षक नारी केन्द्रित कम्बो प्याकहरूको साथ। सिम बारे विस्तृत जानकारी 17104 मा। गो अघि बढौं।
Behind everything that matters are the people who make it matter. Yellow Heart is our way of being a responsible business, so we can make a positive difference for you and everyone around us. We know privacy is important to you, which is why we go the extra mile to keep your personal data safe and secure. We also understand that some of us may need more support than others. Through Yellow Heart Privileges, we make it easier for the differently abled and senior citizens to access the internet. We leave no one behind. With the nation moving towards the digital future, we believe everyone should have equal learning opportunities. Through various learning programs, we hope to build a digital savvy generation. And the children's safety on the internet is our concern too. By nurturing responsible and safe internet habits, we hope to make the internet a safer place for everyone, making the internet better for our future and our nation. Yellow Heart is our commitment to you as a responsible business, because it's in our heart to keep you connected to what matters most.
중간에 시작될 것 같은데 빠른 경호도 좀 부탁드립니다.
긴급 차량 우선 신호 요청합니다. 상황실 여기 제주 200. 아저씨 빨리 가요. 관제센터 신호 통제 들어갑니다. 우선 신호가 다 정차 없이 바로 통과합니다.
이 시스템으로 이동시간이 단축되어 골든타임을 사수할 수 있게 되었습니다. 다른 도시에도 많이 보급되어 소중한 생명을 구하는 데 도움이 되었으면 좋겠습니다.